and welcome back to Football Made Simple. El Clasico took center stage in La Liga as two struggling giants clashed, with Koeman's Barcelona hosting Zidane's Madrid. In a match both sides were hoping would kick them into top gear, the scoreline ended 3-1 to Madrid, thanks to goals by Valverde, Ramos and Modric, whilst Fati netted for Barcelona. The XG indicated it was a deserved win, 3.21 to 1.57, and the XG time map suggested the chances were fairly even to begin with Real peeling away near the end of the game. But what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. A quick shout out to my Patreons for helping to make this video possible. If you want to support, head on over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple and you'll get rewards like early access to videos and exclusive content. A quick reminder of the formations used by both sides, as seen on the OneFootball app. OneFootball will get you match updates, formation updates, as well as player and team stats, and so much more. And the best part is, you can get it absolutely free through the sponsored link in the description below. Let's start by looking at what Barcelona looked to do in possession. As always, they looked to play out short from the back through their centre-backs, with Neto initially looking to find them. They usually came out through the first phase of play relatively easily, as Real used a mid-block initially rather than pressing high up. This is shown in their passes per defensive action of 13.5. And once Barcelona did get higher up the pitch, things were slightly different. Where usually we would see one of De Jong and Busquets drop into the backline, which did happen at times, we saw less of this as Benzema was initially the only central man pressing, as the Real wingers stayed wide, so Barca already had the +1 advantage here, allowing them to advance both fullbacks early. But with Benzema pressing one centre-back, it was usually either Kroos or Valverde who would spring forwards from midfield to add pressure to the other. But this only left Real with two men in midfield. Real were initially comfortable with this scenario, happy to target Busquets with the press when the ball did come into him. But Messi generally operated deeper than Ansu Fati, and he would drop right into midfield to create the overload of 3 versus 2 in the centre. He was then often able to get onto the ball and drive the team up the pitch whilst having options on either side. But the left-hand side was Barca's preferred attacking region, with almost half their attacks coming down that flank, aided by Coutinho seeing a lot of the ball in this inside half space. Messi would often move across to support, whilst De Jong provided the deeper option, allowing Jordi Alba higher up the pitch. With the fullback tucking in on Coutinho, Asensio out wide would either have to press high on De Jong, or have the discipline to stay deeper on Alba, whose pace is usually enough to take him away from any markers. So we often saw Barcelona try to play this ball into the space for Alba, aided by Real's high line, whilst Fati, who stayed central, occupied the centre-backs. This pattern is clear in Barcelona's goal. We see Messi, De Jong, Coutinho and Alba all shift wide into the left channel. Coutinho is slightly more central, which has drawn Nacho, and although Asensio has tracked deeper with Alba, as with most wingers, his defensive concentration lapses, allowing Alba to make the blindside run. Varane then has to shift across, and Fati uses a burst of pace to get in front of Ramos and finish coolly. And if you want to see a dedicated video on Fati's tactical profile, it will be linked at the end of this video. And this left-hand side overload also meant that Real were often dragged across the pitch. Pedri would often push narrow to take Ferland Mendy with him, and this freed space for Dest to move into and receive the switch. And one-on-one, Dest was willing to take on his man and then attack the byline to look for the cutback. His 6 dribbles were a game high and were backed up by 2 attempted crosses. But overload in the left also left them vulnerable, as when there was a turnover, Real looked for a quick switch to Vinicius to begin the transition. But what did the victors, Real Madrid, look to do in possession? Real also looked to build up short, and Barca had a loose 4-4-2 shape when defending, with Fati and Messi high, whilst Pedri and Coutinho were on the outside. So in deeper areas, Courtois pushed higher, whilst the centre-back split to create a 3 versus 2 advantage. And because Real had the natural 3 versus 2 advantage in midfield, they were willing to push Valverde higher, as the attacking midfielder, to provide depth behind Barca's pivots. This would force them either to drop off to close down the space between the lines, which would then free up Kroos and Casemiro to have the ball deeper. But most commonly, Busquets and De Jong were fairly aggressive in pushing high up onto the pivots, ready to win the ball back. And they managed this often, as we see with Real losing the ball just outside their box fairly often. But having their pivots high worked against them for the goal. Because they are high, there is space between the lines, and Asensio pushes the backline deeper whilst Benzema drops in. Benzema can then turn between the lines, and as discussed, Real were willing to push Valverde high, and Busquets doesn't track him deeper, allowing him to charge into the box unmarked for the finish. But the left-hand side was the biggest weapon for Real. This could be done more directly, as we would often see Vinicius tuck infield, drawing Dest with him and freeing up space on the flank for Ferland Mendy to move into. Defending high, Pedri tended to get drawn in towards the ball, so Ferland Mendy would get into the space with a burst of speed, ready to receive the switch and create a 2 versus 1. And in more controlled play, Kroos would be key to this movement, as he would drop into the left back slot, allowing Mendy higher, and he and Vinicius were interchangeable in terms of their positioning at this stage. And with Barca being dragged across as a result, leaving Kroos unmarked would be a risk, as he's a master of the switch of play. So Pedri would at times be drawn higher up towards him, meaning that a ball down the line would leave Real 2 versus 1 up. And it was hard for a Barca pivot to cover across, as this would also leave a midfielder free. As a result, Real got into several dangerous positions down the left using these movements. Overall, after a sloppy start to the season, Zidane will be delighted not only with the result, but a good performance as well, that could set the tone for the rest of the season. Koeman, on the other hand, has dropped points in 3 out of 5 league games, which is concerning. But what did you make of the match? Drop it down in the comments below. And a special shout out to these Patreons for helping to make this video possible. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.